Doesn't get any better than that, does it? Queen with David Bowie, Under Pressure. Did a family film a ghost on a World War II ship? Well, the family visiting the famed USS Lexington in Corpus Christi, Texas, had a truly unforgettable vacation experience when they apparently filmed a ghost aboard the carrier. Now, check out the video, check out the images right now over coasttocoastam.com, and let us know what you think, what the family actually filmed. Go over to our Facebook page and comment there. This is Coast to Coast AM. It's Friday night. Open lines are next. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Coast to Coast. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's Friday night. That means open lines. So I'm going to do this simply. I'm going to start from the top, and I'm going to work my way down. I just want to see what everyone has to say tonight. So let's start with wild card one, Carlos in Carlson, California. Carlos, you're up.
Yeah, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Church. Well, I wanted to ask Mr. Carlson a question regarding numerology, because I noticed that a lot of chaotic events, terrorist activity occurs on the 11th day of the month. For instance, we had our 9/11, which gives you 9 plus 1 plus 1, gives you an 11. And remember, the Twin Towers make up an 11. The Spanish terrorist attack occurred on 3/11/2004, exactly 911 days from our 9/11. And, of course, there was another terrorist attack in Africa, I forgot the nation, on 4/11, and of course we have Fukushima in Japan on 3/11, and there's many more chaotic events happening on the 11th. But
well, I'm sure Carlos, I'm sure that Randal would have had, a great answer for you, but not as interesting for me as your answer. What do you think is going on?
Well, I believe that the forces, I would call it the Illuminati, okay, the invisible government, deliberately creates all these chaotic events, and they use numerology as a medium to perhaps make sure that everything goes right on that particular, everything goes right as planned. Now, what I think is that the number 11 probably represents the twin pillars of the Temple of Solomon.
Oh, very interesting. Well, let me ask you this. Well, Carlos, I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I got to ask you another question, okay? Do you remember last year for the Paris attacks, I was hosting Coast to Coast that Friday night, but that was Friday the 13th. And I thought that there was significant for that date. It's not a coincidence to me that those attacks were planned on Friday the 13th in Paris when everything else went down with the Knights Templar and Friday the 13th and so forth. Do you think that there was something there? And are you able to get the number 11 in on that date?
Yes, the number 13th definitely is another date that they use. It's probably got some kind of occult significance. Some people think that the 13th is a symbol of when the Knights Templar, what was the name of that person? The leader of the Knights Templar was burned up. I think, on the 13th, Friday the 13th, or something to that.
That's right.
Right. I forget his name. That was back in 1307. He was burned on the 13th. So there's some kind of occult significance there. I don't know how the number 11 would fit into that. I'm not really sure. But the 13th does have some kind of an occult significance. And I really want to get to the bottom of this. What do all these numbers really signify? Because I do notice, for instance, the number 7 is also used. I remember the July the 7th attack in London.
Well, that's exactly right. Yes. And I do want to learn more about this numerology is something that fascinates me. And it's not just the coincidence part, because things tend to repeat themselves. But it's also how it comes into play directly with things like the construction of the Great Pyramids, or how pi is involved there, how it applies in astrology, how it times with dates of the year, where does it fit in with the equinoxes at each time of the. It's really funny how numbers seem to repeat and make sense, and some things are done with intention. I totally agree with you, Carlos. Thank you so much for the phone call, my friend.
Thank you. Good evening.
Absolutely. Great phone call. Okay, let's go in order here. Let's go with Lewis and Yuma. You've been on hold for a while, Lewis. Welcome to the program, finally.
Well, thanks for taking my call. I got something that I study, and that is, I think I know who built the pyramids.
Who built them, Lewis?
Well, let's look at Africa. Africa, you could fit the United States into it, probably over 2 times. And if you search Africa, there is no stone structures save Egypt and Ethiopia. So you heard of the Queen of Sheba. She had relations with Solomon. She said Solomon is his God is God. Now, the other thing that you got to look at is the biggest stone in Egypt is 1,200 tons. The other common denominator you'd have is you got Ethiopia, which is south of Egypt. North of Egypt, you have Jerusalem, where the stones weigh. I think the biggest one that they figured weigh around 600 tons. So you have those 3 places: Jerusalem, Ethiopia, and Egypt. And I believe that they were built by a genius, and that was Joseph. And they call him Imhotep, which the Egyptians have been trying to find his grave.
Wait. Which Joseph was Imhotep? Joseph of Arimathea? Which Joseph?
I don't know. Joseph, that would be Jacob's son.
Jacob's son, Joseph.
Yes, remember, he was sold to the Ishmaelites, and he ended up in Egypt. He was in prison, and then the Pharaoh wanted him to interpret a dream. Sort of going through this kind of fast. But the Imhotep they've been looking for, he's supposed to be one of the geniuses of Egypt. I believe that was Joseph. And I'm writing a book right now proving God exists scientifically. And there is just so much. You got, I'll give you for instance, in Proverbs 8:26, the Douay Rheims says God created the earth and the poles.
Right.
In King James, it says the earth and the fields. Now, how would they know there was poles? This was way before Jesus. This is about 800 years before Christ.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting right there. Well, when the book comes out, Lewis, you've got to let us know. I would definitely like to check that out. I'm always interested in who built the pyramids. Great call. Thank you so much, Lewis. Let's go to, who's up next here? Let's go to Wildcard 5. Anthony in Atlanta. Let's go out east. Anthony, you're up next on Coast.
Hey, Jimmy. Incredible show tonight.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask Randal, but now I get to ask you what you think of the Hollow Earth series. And I was going to ask him, but now I'm asking you about what are your thoughts on humanity having gone off planet and returned back again?
Well, and thank you. Stay with me, Anthony, because I'm gonna throw this back at you too as well. There is way too much storytelling throughout history from different civilizations around the world about either living under, going, or life coming up from the earth. And then we have different examples of, pretty exotic cave systems and carving and so forth throughout cultures that have gone down probably to protect themselves from something, right? So we have that. And then When we go to the hardcore Hollow Earth, where we have the different stories not only of Antarctica and an entrance there, and the fact that we can't fly over Antarctica and check it out for ourselves, or at least you and I can't do it, is there something to that? But let me take it a step further. When we look at Mars, and I want you to go with me on this, there is so much on the surface of Mars that shows us something was probably there. Something lived on Mars, but Mars changed. Did they leave and come here, which I wouldn't doubt that is part of it, or that they coexisted on both planets at the same time? I could see that too. Or once the atmosphere was gone on Mars, the way that it is today, that maybe they were forced into going underground too as well. So I consider, and that could be part of the mythology that is here on Earth. That's the way that I look at it. So let me throw it back at you, Anthony. What do you think is going on? Do you think that there is a hollow Earth?
Well, I really do. I absolutely.
Why is that?
Georgia. Well, I live in Georgia, and I've climbed this rock called Stone Mountain. It's like the biggest rock in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It goes under 4 states. And when I'm climbing on that thing, I'll slap on it like a rock, and it's actually hollow in so many places. But that's not the only reason. The other reason is I'm from Arizona, and the Hopi Indians claim that they came from underground, and they had the help of the ant people.
That's right.
And not only that, they believe that they actually came from the star system, the Pleiades.
That's right.
And yes. And so, I mean, there's so much mythology pointing towards the hollow earth, and there's so much indications, even Egyptology indications of early technology that was far greater and surpassed our current technology.
Well, there's that, Anthony, and also all of the reports coming from Corey Goode and David Wilcock and other researchers out there, Michael Sala, about civilizations that have been down there for a long time, maybe even before us. And I'm referring to the possibility of off-world civilizations, and what a better place to hide, right? And you would be
Absolutely.
You'd be away from all of the cataclysmic and catastrophic events that Randal Carlson was just referring to. Great questions, Anthony. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's what I'm talking about. I love the Coast audience when it comes to stuff like this. Let's go to east of the Rockies, James, Kansas City, Missouri. James, you're up next.
Well, hi there, Jimmy.
How you doing, James?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. You touched on Atlantis while you were talking to Randal.
Yep.
And I read a book a while back. I don't exactly remember the name of it. I think it was like the Mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle.
Okay.
I do forget the author also, but he touched on the Day of Great Shaking. It was about 20,000 years ago. And he talked about how he wondered how the 2 giant rifts that are down in the Atlantic Ocean down around the Bermuda Triangle area.
Right.
Okay. And I think the Day of Great Shaking was what made those 2 holes.
Oh, yeah. Well, definitely.
So,
sure.
Excuse me?
I said sure. Absolutely. And also you have the Mariana Trench, too, as well.
Well, the Mariana Trench is more natural form. These 2 holes they're just giant holes. There's no natural reason for them to be there.
I got you. Right.
Okay, you know where the wall off of Bimini is?
Yep.
Bimini Islands?
Yep.
There was a gentleman back in the early 60s that went scuba diving down there, and he mentioned this in the book. And he saw this kind of circular coral reef structure, like a large, what would like one side of a exposed tank.
Mm-hmm.
And he touched it and it collapsed. Okay, and he said that the guy said that the inside of it looked like it was a perfect cylinder, and it went up several hundred feet.
I do remember that.
And the gentleman got out of the water, back on his boat, went home, and died like 4 months later of radiation poisoning.
I do remember that. Hey, James, you ever thought about doing radio?
No, I haven't.
Man, you got pipes, man. You haven't been told that growing up?
Well, I used to sing in choir back in grade school and junior high and high school.
Man, you got the pipes, man. Let me ask you, when did you start to, I mean, you're in Missouri. Where did the fascination for Atlantis and underwater anomalies happen for you?
Well, I quit disbelieving in religion, organized.
Right.
Okay, and I started researching I saw that with ancient aliens, technologies and like the City of the Gods in is that Peru?
It could
around
be
Machu Picchu, and
right.
you know, where they've got the carved stones that there's no way we could have put those walls together.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about Cusco too, as well. Yes.
Cusco, yes. And there's stuff all over the world that indicates that there has been advanced cultures here, and for some reason they just up and left.
Well, you know what I think, James, and thank you for the phone call. We're going to be headed towards a break here in just a second.
You're welcome. Thank you for having Coast to Coast.
Yeah, absolutely, James. Thank you so much. I'm just going to throw this out there to the audience. This is what I think. When I look at Cusco or the same type of construction at Machu Picchu all the way over to Egypt and other places around the world, when you look at those giant megalithic stones that are irregular in shape, but yet they fit, and some of them are 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 tons, and they have these odd shapes, but yet they fit perfectly into each other. Now, go with me on this. You have a bunch of clay, you're a little kid, and you've just got a bunch of different chunks of clay, different sizes, different whatever, and you just stack them up on top of each other and mash them together. Now they fit, and now they're perfect. And now they look like you made the clay to fit together perfectly with these irregular shapes. That's the same thing that was going on with those rocks. They somehow got it soft. That's the only explanation. They had to heat up the entire wall so they fit together, because there's no way that they were placing a 20-ton block up on the rocks, shaping it, pulling it back down, reshaping it, putting it back up to see if it fits. No, it's not quite. Pull it back down, reshape it, and get it right, and then place the next block up. It would take them 1,000 years to do a few hundred feet. And that's just it. It just doesn't make sense in my brain. You know what does make sense? They heated them up. That's it. Okay, I hope everybody goes with me on that. They got the rocks soft. That's all. Or they were able to get the rocks, they were soft to begin with, and they were heated and then changed into rocks. I don't know. Dan's looking at me but I'm being serious here. This is Coast to Coast AM. It's Friday night. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Now, you can follow me on Twitter. I still have some more Twitter questions here. I will get to those at JChurchRadio. It's Friday night. I'm sitting in for George. It's open lines, and I'm going to take as many phone calls as I can as we head out the night. This is Coast to Coast AM. I'll be right back after this. Stay with us. Blood, Sweat, and Tears. David Clayton Thomas. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. All right, let's do this right now. Let's talk for a second. If you enjoyed this show tonight and Randal, you need to check out my show. It's called Fade to Black. That's all I'm going to say. It's easy for you to check out. Just go and click on my name over at Coast to Coast on the website right there. Click on my name. Take you over to my site. Everything is free. Everything is cool. We do it 3 hours a night, Monday through Thursday. That's it. Go and do it. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. We update everything there. Last but not least, this Tuesday, the 28th, I will be over at Coast Insider with a chat with everybody. And that is something that is special for me because it's the first time that I've been invited to go and hang out with the Coast audience. So let's go do all of that. When I come back after the break, it's Friday night and your calls. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Coast. Let's do this. I'm going to go. This is crazy. Let's go to Wild Card. Let's go to Richard in Northern Ireland. Richard, welcome to Coast.
Good morning, Jimmy.
How are you, Richard?
Good. Shout out to the theater nuts and a shout out to the Coast Insiders.
Right on. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Jimmy, I was going to ask Daniel, obviously he's gone now, but I was going to ask Daniel, you know, the big leap from caveman to a technology-wise environment.
Uh-huh.
There's something there that's not right.
Nope. There is. Look, I can't explain it, and this is my point, Richard. And I want to thank you for the phone call. And you've been on hold for a while and calling in from Ireland. But let me just say this: in my intro tonight, I need to make something perfectly clear. I don't know how we got to where we are today, but the way that we are taught with academia, professionals, archaeologists, historians, their dogma and their paradigm, what their narrative that they've been telling us, we're finding out today that it's not reality. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. I can't figure it out. I know that we're getting closer, but I feel pretty comfortable in saying it ain't the way that they're trying to teach us. And that's just the way that I feel. So just stay on Coast to Coast and stay with Fade to Black. And slowly but surely, we're going to get the answers. If they're not going to give it to us, we're going to go out and get them ourselves. What do you say?
I think that's a great idea, Jimmy. I think that's a fantastic idea. But, you know, something happened between the Stone Age and between us being what we are today. And I think we all know there's something out there.
Yeah, Richard, you're right. And see, the thing is, this is what bothers me when you hear archaeologists or historians or Egyptologists, whatever, and they'll tell, you're not giving enough credit to ancient man. You know what? No, I'm not going there. I just don't need to. There's something else. There's another higher power involved, and we're going to figure it out. Thank you for the phone call, Richard. Be safe out there in Ireland, my friend. There you go. All right, let's see. Who's up next? Let's go to first-time caller line. Anthony in Auburn, New York. You're up next on Coast. Thank you for holding.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you so much for what you provide us with. And I hope to find out how I can watch or hear Fade to Black someday.
No, just click on my name over the Coast website. It's not that big of a deal. Very simple. So what's on your mind, Anthony?
Well, Mr. Carlson, by the way, was his name Randal or Daniel?
Randal. I know Richard said Daniel, but it's Randal.
What a wonderful wealth of information scientifically. And I'm just curious to know what his opinion would be in terms of flows of consciousness in the universe today. Moviedom has brought us 2001 Space Odyssey and, of course, Mission to Mars.
Right.
And in both of those, there are incidents that are very moving and very touching. I'm wondering what his opinion would be sometime, or even yours, what you think of the monolith. We're looking at prehistoric man, and we're touching the monolith, and it just seems like many of these scientific approaches or viewpoints do not touch on God, and then
Anthony, and great phone call. And let me tell you something. I talk about the monolith all the time, and I think that Stanley knew something. That's what I think. And, of course, Arthur C. Clarke, all right? And that's an older story by Arthur C. Clarke, the Sentinel.
Of course.
But this is a couple of crazy little things that have happened recently in our timeline here now that are very similar to the monolith and that principle. One of them, and Randall talked about it tonight, is Göbekli Tepe in southern Turkey on the Syrian border. Göbekli Tepe is 10,000, 12,000 years old. It's large, monoliths, but they were deliberately buried. Just like the monolith in Kubrick's 2001 On the Moon.
Exactly.
Okay, now let me advance. Now, that's a pretty trippy thought, isn't it, right?
Sure.
Now, let's go to the moon of Mars, which is called Phobos. Phobos has got a monolith on it. And we have tried to get to, the Soviets have made 2 cracks at it, tried to get to Phobos to check it out. We've certainly taken enough pictures. You can go on the web and look at all of them. But that is a monolith. And Buzz Aldrin has commented about this over the years. Let's go to Mars. Let's go to Phobos. Let's go check this out. Somebody built that thing. And he's right. Now, where the urban legend is with 2001 and Kubrick knowing something and Arthur C. Clarke knowing something, and then we look at those comments about Göbekli Tepe and we look at Phobos, it feels like there's something consistent here. That's all. That's my answer for that, Anthony, and I really, really appreciate you asking me that because I think that they're all connected. I don't think it's an accident.
Well, all I know now in life is that I've returned to faith. I'm more of a faith-based person, and I certainly hope that scientific viewpoints can touch on the fact that we're here to know, love, and serve God.
Yeah, Anthony, thank you for the phone call. And you know what you should do, and then get back to me later. Go get Rama, the whole series of Rama books by Arthur C. Clarke. Check that out. And thank you for the phone call. Great phone call. All right, let's go to Brian, Wild Card, Colorado Springs. Brian, you're up next on Coast.
Hey, how's it going, Jimmy?
It's going good, Brian. How about you?
It's going pretty good. I was listening to your show earlier about the Freemasons and whatnot. And I was just like, I kind of have a question, but I don't think it's really a question. I was hearing the other callers talk about where they thought, the pyramids were built and who built them. And my personal opinion, from sort of the research I've done, the Freemasons are the ones that built the pyramids.
Sure.
And
I can see that.
They have the name Freemasons for a reason because they were not free at the time when the pyramids were being built.
That's interesting. I'll say this, Brian. When I was a kid, and I don't remember my exact age, but and again, thank you for the phone call. Great point, great question. When I was a kid, somebody said to me, I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, but somebody said that the Freemasons, and this is the early 70s, that the Freemasons came from Giza. That's what I was told ever since I was way before this Freemason mythology and mythos was established today in the way that it is investigated, commented, and written about. But I was told that when I was a little kid, and I've never forgotten that. All right, let's go to Bridge in Provo, Utah. Bridge, you're up next on Coast.
Hey, how are you doing tonight, Jimmy?
I'm doing good, Bridge. How are you?
Good. I want to say I really enjoyed the show. I kind of wish you guys could maybe play some Van Halen or some Motley Crue during the breaks and late hours to help keep you awake.
Well, I do. I always open every Coast to Coast with Van Halen, so you missed it tonight.
Exactly, yeah. Well,
all right.
I got some, it's not really a question. I'm just hoping I can shed some light on some stuff.
Okay, hey, Bridge.
Help me figure out what's going on.
Okay, really quick, Bridge. You're breaking up, so try to get the question in really quick.
Well, I've never heard of the Area 52 conspiracy in Dogma, Utah.
Absolutely.
Well, I've heard a lot about it, and I decided I'd go up there and check it out. And sure enough, me and my friend Wes were driving along outside of the base. Well, outside of the base grounds, you get to the gate. You have to drive I think it's like another 50 or 75 miles out. I could be completely wrong, but
it's a long ways
to get to the actual base. There's
right.
no way to get there. We're driving along. It's pitch black, and I'm looking. We're looking for things, and I see out of the window a streak of blue light. And, I thought at first it might be a shooting star, but then there was another streak of blue light in that same spot. And it was really, really strange. And on the way back, outside of the window, we saw it looked like a bright fireball. So
did you take pictures?
There's something going on out there.
Hey, Bridge.
I'm not quite sure what it is, but...
Yeah, Bridge, you're breaking up, my friend. The question was, did you take pictures?
We did.
You did? Send him into Coast. Send him into Coast.
We can do that.
Okay, I'll put you on hold right now, and we'll get you. Give Donna your email address. Okay. All right, stay right there. Let's go to. I want to see those pictures. Let's go to Linda in Windsor, Canada. Linda, you're up next.
Hi, Jimmy. How are you?
I'm doing good, Linda. How are you?
You sure are. I love where you are at. We're going to find out. You're darn right we're going to find out.
Right.
I hear you so well. To that gentleman about Queen of Sheba, it says in the Bible that Queen of Sheba went on a very spiritual journey with Solomon. Mysticism,
Arimathea.
Esoterics.
Yes.
Pardon me there. And learned a lot. And she's going to be judging after when Christ returns the generation. That's right in the Bible.
Well, also, this is the other thing about Queen of Sheba, and I didn't bring this up, but their research has shown that quite possibly the Ark of the Covenant was in her possession for a minute.
I heard that, yeah.
Yeah. She's a very important figure.
Oh, which, they buried her, and she needs to be brought out. And here's another great thing that I when Shaquille said that he believed in that flat earth theory.
Oh, did you hear that?
Yes.
Hey, Dan, did you hear Shaquille, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But I want to tell, right in the Bible again, Job, way back in his time, said, God hangs the earth on nothing.
Okay.
In other words, he saw the earth in the universe, just in midair, as well the other planets. Now, how did Job see that?
Well, I can't comment. I can't comment on that, but I will say this: the flat earthers, they have followers all around the globe. Bump. Did you like that? Did you like that? Did you like that, Linda? Thank you for the phone call, Linda. And those are a couple of really great points. Thank you so much. Have a great night. Okay, let's go. Let's see. Who's been on the longest here? Let's go to Tom in Bronx, New York. Tom, you're up next.
Yes. Hi, Jimmy. I'd like to say that when the West Coast was extremely sea level, and you had like Arizona, New Mexico, California, and what is Central America, like Mexico, was underwater. Brazil was underwater too, because Western South America rose before Eastern South America. And the land at that time, like in Brazil or Mexico, may have been like 3 or 4 foot deep. You'd get the winds that would come up and pick up a lot of moisture from the ocean, and it would hit like what is Arizona, New Mexico, Southern California, and you had regular jungles there in these areas. When the land rose in Central America, it displaced the ocean water, and Brazil came up and modified the climate. And what it became like in the United States, they didn't get those kind of vicious storms anymore, and a lot of their life that was on the North American continent, like these big dinosaurs and everything, they perished. They didn't get that fresh water anymore, and Arizona and New Mexico and California became largely deserts.
No, that's pretty interesting, Tom. And when do you think this was taking place? You mentioned dinosaurs, so you're talking before 65 million, 100 million years ago?
It has to be that way.
Right.
And
well, what about New York? You're from the Bronx. What was going on up there?
Well, we had dinosaurs. When you go to we have City Island up here in the Bronx, it became part of the Bronx years ago.
Right.
They found horse-like looking dinosaurs right up here in the
I remember that. I do remember that.
They found down in the bones. They found bones,
Right.
and they look horse-like.
Right.
But in other words, you got to remember that that's where the ocean was, like out there where you are in California. That it was probably like that. That's how these areas became like jungle-like, and then went to desert.
Well, you bring up a really good point, Tom, and you should go back and look at, thank you for the phone call. If you go back and look at Randal's images that are still posted over at Coast to Coast AM, that's exactly what he's talking about. And you look at the coast off of California, all the way down and all the way in, those images, excuse me, are from Montana. So you have to think about 2 miles thick ice coming down from Canada all across North America. And you can see the line. You can see there's no mountains in Indiana. There's nothing in Michigan. There's nothing in Wisconsin. There's nothing there. The Blue Mounds in Wisconsin are not mountains. Okay, those are hills. It's all basically flat, and all of it melted. This flash flood that he's talking about just lasted for days, maybe weeks, came through and just pulverized everything with 1,000 or 2 feet of water. The evidence is clearly there. What an amazing show tonight, and I want to thank all of you, the Coast Insiders. Everything that we do here at Coast, I try to bring the show every night. I don't phone it in. I come in, I'm prepared, and I just try to bring the most dynamic guests possible. Tonight it was Randal Carlson. When I used to listen to Coast 20 years ago, and I would sit and learn and get sucked in to the guest, that's what I want to do at Coast, and that's what we did tonight with Randal. And then sharing all of that with open lines and you, it's the very best. So I want to thank all of you for allowing me to hang out with you. Special thanks to Dan right here on the console, Donna behind the glass, of course, Chris, Lisa, Stephanie, Lex, Sean, of course, George, Tommy, and everybody here at Coast. Thank you so much. Go Bagley Tappy.